Today we continue our month-long reflection on liberation, an all too appropriate subject given that most of us have never been more constrained in our lives. And yet even as that is happening, even as we are in quarantine, I do think that some of you are experiencing feelings of emancipation in certain aspects of your life. We hardly know how to name it. And we don't know what to do with it or what it really means. And it's a bit ironic, isn't it, to feel more liberated in lockdown. And that's okay. I mean, I believe that in irony, we detect the corpse of our lost spirituality waiting to be reborn. I mean, isn't paradox a spiritual technology? And isn't irony just paradox without a soul? So let us then resuscitate our souls, make of irony a paradox. You see, we'll be thinking together, you and I, and all here gathered, about liberation through service. Liberation through service. But that's a paradox in a culture where sovereignty is confused with domination. In our world, service sounds the opposite of liberation, even if that service is on behalf of something noble. So how then is service sovereignty? How is service liberation? Well, I've asked our service associate, Leslie Gibbons, to help us think more about it. I asked her to think about a time when she was in service to a more beautiful world. And then, whenever that was, what did it feel like? And is it even now?
Good morning, Ron. And good morning to all of you out there. I'm so glad that we can all be together this morning and that I can be with you. That's an interesting question, Ron. Because for me, the beautiful world that we are living in is exactly the same as the world before the alien entered it, the virus. There's never been a more beautiful world, in my view. It's the only one we have, and we have always had to learn to adapt to it. For the first time in my life, I've stopped running through my life as fast as I can, and I'm not busy. I'm seeing the world with new clarity. I'm listening. I'm quiet. I'm learning more about my family, my friends, my neighbors. I'm learning more about my church community. They have been wonderful to me and to Maurice. And I'm learning more about myself. And I have undivided time now with my husband, who isn't well. I've reacquainted myself with my bread maker, with my little red toolkit for home repairs. I have needed it. My vacuum, which I continue to dislike from the bottom of my heart. I'm writing again. I still have my nightly glass of scotch. But, and here's the big but, my love of volunteering and helping with my church and my community has been thwarted. For the first time, I have had to ask for help. And I've had to overcome the discomfort of asking for help. And I've discovered that it does make the world an even more beautiful place. Because allowing others to show their kindness and to watch the selflessness of caregivers, nurses, doctors, volunteers of all kinds, it has enriched my view of the world. Yes, I'm worried, I'm dismayed, even horrified at times at events. But I don't think we have ever been in service to a more beautiful world. Now, my way of helping right now is by staying in my home, but I do have more confidence in people out there in the world who are good and thoughtful and finding the inner resources and the altruism they didn't even know they had. I'm not thankful for this coronavirus, but I do have a new thankfulness for the world and the people who are in service in it. And I look forward to being able to help again when I can. Because being in service to the world right now by staying home or by helping out there when you can, this shows us to be the best people that we can be. So, this morning, I dedicate the lighting of our chalice to all those good people out there, in whatever capacity they're in. They're helping us to keep informed and safe and healthy, and I would like to dedicate the lighting of our chalice this morning to them. We kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness, and may the warmth of sharing bring us peace. We are the North Shore Unitarian Church, and our mission is to empower people to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. If this is one of your first times participating in our Sunday service, or your first introduction to Unitarianism, please make sure you say so in the comments section to the right of your screen. You'll find a warm welcome here, as warm as if you had walked through our front doors on a Sunday morning. In this community, we celebrate people from all walks of life, no matter how you make your living, no matter how you experience the sacred, no matter who you are or who you love. We hope you will feel welcome here. It's so good to be together.
ای کاش میگشودیم آرام، ای کاش جمله های تنم را آهنگ عاشقانه میدادی، وانگاه آن عاشقانه را از بر میخواندی.
Thank you for that lovely music. So, the idea of service as liberation grew out of our reflections on Easter. And during that reflection, we considered the idea that if the divine comes into experience as incarnation, via incarnation, then resurrection is the work of the divine, the connective work of the divine. And so it made a kind of sense to then claim that resurrection is service, and that service to an ever more beautiful world is the pathway to experiencing God, whatever that means for you. But ever since I came into that line of thinking, I've had this reoccurring and persistent question. What the hell does that mean? I mean, on an intuitive level, I think I know that service is a pathway to the divine. That makes some sense intuitively, but I cannot help but try to align the intuitive with the intellectual and interface the subconscious with the intentional. So it seems that the condensed expressions of poetry are just such an interface. And so here are my thoughts in sum on this conundrum. How is service liberation expressed as a poem? Now, if you received the Sunday bulletin in your email this morning, the poem should be included there, unless I was too late getting it into Janny. Hopefully she was able to throw that in. Thank you, Janny. And what I'd like you to do at home, as I read it aloud, is to allow a line or a phrase to emerge from the whole. We're also going to display this on the screen right now so that you'll be able to read it as I say it. But if you have it in front of you on a piece of paper, you can underline the phrase that emerges for you. And if you don't, you may want to write the phrase down or say it to yourself. Don't annoy the person next to you by saying it too loudly, but, select that phrase and do something so that it is memorable to you. And we'll come back to it later in the service. So here is a poem that addresses the question to some degree, poetically, how is service liberation? When you look up, lean away from the work and time resumes, you realize that you were so far gone, so far in that you could not discern your foot from the path, nor path from destination, nor wish to want to. Like coming up for air after a deep blue dive, you hark back in wonder and yearn to return to where the quality of light and all colors and scents, each flowering sound present as vibrant embracings of your purposed being, resounding the same for them. When you look up, lean away from the work and time resumes, you hark back in wonder and know the return too yearns for you. What I'm imagining, I suppose, is that service to a more beautiful world has the potential to draw one into a flow state. That state wherein you are so focused on whatever you are doing that everything falls away. Your sense of a separate self, the knowledge that you are performing a task, all of it. It's a unitive state, an experience of connection, of oneness, or maybe more accurately, it is the cessation of the experience of separateness. When I have this sensation, it has most commonly been where I am now, or which now, as I write, is now, then, as I speak. Time gets weird in recorded life. Anyway, that is to say, when I'm writing and really, really into it, the point where writing hardly describes what's taking place, it's more like wrestling or dancing or making music. That's what it feels like. Those are some pretty kinetic metaphors for what to most would look like me staring motionless at a computer terminal. But that's what it feels like when I'm in the zone. And you know the feeling. It may be different metaphors for you, different metaphors that describe different activities. It could be biking, hiking, writing, balancing the books, praying, baking, painting, posing, in yoga, pruning, singing, whistling, whittling, daydreaming. Those could be the activities or the metaphor. But that's the flow state. Those activities are metaphors that describe the flow state, But what is its relationship to service? If flow state is the hoped for outcome, what is its relationship to service? Well, when one enters into service, when one acts on behalf of an identity that may encompass, but on the whole is bigger or other than our typical self-conception, when one enters into service into an honorable subject, and in that service achieves a flow state, to me, you have become one with the purpose and disposition of reality itself. A reality manifest out of some kind of attractive, productive force that we may as well call love. Fleeting as it may be, the effort to generate, to create on behalf of something bigger than you, I think that's what God feels like. It feels like coming alive, like resurrection. And reminds me, actually, of the well-used Howard Thurman quote, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive and go do it, because what the world needs is people who have come alive." You've heard that 1,000 times. Now, it so happens that a fascist can say the same thing. Any warrior will provide a similar testament. We're not hoping for either of those, but both of those are familiar with the lovely feeling of flow state in service. So how are we to determine whether our service is rendered to the benefit or detriment of, is it too simple to say the good? Actually, yes, it is too simple to serve such principles as the good. For the good tends to relocate over time, contingent as it is on culture. The proposition is that service to a more beautiful world is the path to and an experience of the divine, the holy, however humble or grandiose you make that out to be. But for some, a more beautiful world is one with only people who look or act or believe like themselves. Right? Now we know they're misguided. That is not a more beautiful world, not in line with any principle evident in organic emergence in life. Life requires multiplicity. Existence is logically impossible without it. Interdependence requires diversity. So we know they're wrong. But it's also true that if they can be wrong, so can we. We have been wrong before, after all. So, we must remain humble and yet also not let our humility freeze us from service nor excuse us from our own responsibility, but simply compel our curiosity and our capacity for critical thought. The thing is, most of you engaged with this broadcast are generally decent enough folks that when you put your mind to service, to serving the more beautiful world, no pole star is necessarily needed. And I should probably just listen to the wisdom of Teresa of Avila, who wrote, "The important thing is not to think too much, but to love much." And so do that which best stirs you to love. So, maybe I overthink it. Maybe we should humbly leave it to intuition, checked by curiosity, and leave it at that. So here is the charge. Coming as you are, from a decent a place as you can, do what you can to come alive. Some activity that stirs your love and propels you into a low-level or high-level kind of rapturous state. It sounds more grandiose than it is. It actually happens with some frequency. But I wonder, what is that for you right now? Here in quarantine. And then as you find your way to whatever that is for you right now, you might be heartened to know that you are in that endeavor already in service to the world. When you find yourself stirred into love, when you find yourself in a flow state, coming alive, resurrected, you are benefiting just by that more beings than you know. Even if you're most alive and love-stirred when doing what might seem a menial task, you are in that moment dissolving the barriers between beauty and yourself. And that spiritual experience makes ripples. It changes both you and the world. It is resurrective after a fashion. It soothes and inspires you and others. All the better, I suppose, if you know that it is happening as an act of service. All the better if you know your joy is a service to the world. And perhaps that knowledge will shift how you do what you do. To be honest right now, with that one, I'm speculating. When I write for you, to the purpose of sharing it with you in a reflection, it is for me clearly an act of service. I aim to be of service to you, to myself, and to do something or to serve something larger than either of us separate and all of us combined when I do this. That is explicit for me. But I also write fiction for fun. It too makes me come alive. And I don't know that I've ever thought of that as service, even when I thought I was creating it for, some unnamed fancied reader in the future. So I don't really know how thinking of it as service would affect the process of creating it or affect me. But I aim to find out. And I encourage you to do the same. Think of your joy as service, as lighting the pathway to the divine, and see what happens when you think of your joy as connecting, illuminating the pathway to the divine. And then perhaps the inverse might be true as well. Perhaps you are engaged in some clearly service-oriented activity. Maybe it's a job or a cause or the care for someone who's not able to care for themselves. Any of those, let's be honest, can get tedious at times. And in that case, I wondering how that task makes you come alive, meditating on the beauty that you can identify, or on the possibility that your service can be a a pathway to God feeling might open your sensibilities to the pathway. The idea being that the connection is already occurring by your service, and you need only notice. And in noticing, experience a kind of ecstasy of union, a reinvigoration, a resurrection. Again, speculation, but if that's you, run the experiment and get back to me. All this is to say that service is as much an attitude as it is a physical act. It is as much a point of view as much a spiritual posture as it is a kinetic endeavor. And therein lies your opportunity now, I suppose. As our physical mobility is currently curtailed. So what will you do with that notion? What will you do? Or perhaps, how will you be doing what you already do? Or will you find something new? Where will you come alive? Now is not the time to wait. Now, as you let that simmer, listen again to the poem. Now, I wonder if a different phrase will emerge for you. Now, if so, note it somehow, and later you can put those two phrases in conversation with each other. If the same phrase emerges, see if you can shave it down to 1 or 2 words. You may then wish to meditate on those 1 or 2 words over the course of the week. So this is a process called Lectio Divina. It's a spiritual practice. I invite you to it. When you look up, lean away from the work, and time resumes, you realize that you were so far gone, so far in, that you could not discern your foot from path, nor path from destination, nor wish to want to. Like coming up for air, after a deep blue dive, you hark back in wonder and yearn to return to where the quality of light and all colors and scents, each flowering sound present as vibrant embracings of your purposed being, resounding the same for them. When you look up, lean away from the work, and time resumes, you hark back in wonder and know the return too yearns for you. good to hear that again. Hear from you all. That was obviously a recording from when we were together in the past. Maybe that was your service. Maybe that's where you came alive in the choir, or even in listening to the choir live. And now here we are, needing to find new ways to be of service, new ways to come alive. Let's meditate on that for a little bit, shall we? Let's assume an attitude and posture of prayer, where we are connecting in a deeper way to Gaia, to the flow, where we can see the sun as a being and thank you, sun, for light. Thank you, earth, for holding us close, for our bodies, for our senses. Thank you, water, for life. Water is life. Thank you, air, for giving us voice, showing us how the Spirit moves. We are so grateful for the abilities that we have, the relationships and memories that we have been given over the course of our lives. So grateful for our families, biological families or found families, for the lessons and laughter that they have brought to us. I'm grateful for this breath, and this life. We know that we are embedded in systems that have caused harm. And we pray that we will be drawn to understanding our place in them in order that we may reform them, extricate ourselves from them, and turn harmful processes into healing processes. We're thankful for the medical providers and all the people that help them, those who are dealing directly with this pandemic. Pray for their health and for the health of the people that they are caring for. Pray for the wisdom of our leaders and the leaders of other peoples. For we are now aware more than ever of how connected we are. We ask these things in the name of all that is holy and offer in return our service, our joy, our love, our experiences. We offer those to you. Thank you.
Cuando el pobre nada tiene y honrarte, cuando un hombre pasa a ser agua da, cuando el débil a su mano fortalece, para Dios mismo
Compassion gives the suffering consolation. When expecting brings forth hope that is lost. When we choose love, not the hatred all around us. When we know that God still goes that road with us. When we know that God still goes that road with us.
Cuando crece la alegría y nos inunda, cuando dicen nuestros labios la verdad, cuando añoramos el sentir de los sencillos, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar, va Dios mismo en nuestro mismo caminar.
Thank you. We're a busy congregation despite the coronavirus closures, so please read your weekly e-bulletin. If you haven't already subscribed to it, you can do that by contacting our office or clicking on the link in our YouTube description. But here are a few things that I would like to mention to you this morning. First of all, congratulations to Sonia Macro. She turned 96 this week. What an accomplishment. Congratulations, Sonia, from us all. Now, our outreach donations for this week will be going to the Edible Gardens Project. They grow fresh food for those in need in our larger community, a very worthwhile project. There will be also a special meeting after church today to discuss our application for the gaming grant this year. If you'd like to join in that conversation, please do. And we have a special town hall meeting on May 3rd after church. Again, all details will be found in your bulletin. If you'd like to receive the bulletin, contact Janie in the church, please. Now, we're doing an online communication survey, and we would really appreciate and encourage your participation. I hope that you can do that. Again, you can do that online. If you want to look up your pledge history, you can do that by contacting Janie in the office. It's very helpful to be able to do that. Now, we would like to have a photograph of you in a beautiful place or in your happy place. Please, could you send them to the church by May 20th? I have no idea why, but all will be revealed in time, I'm sure. And lastly, you are all invited to join Ron in a lively discussion after church, online of course, in our Zoom coffee hour. And we can unpack the week and we can unpack the service. And I'll look forward to seeing you there. And now, please join me as we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but carry with us the light of vision and the warmth of hope. The world calls us to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. And we go forth with courage and love. Thank you.
Well, that's almost it for this week. Hey, if you're new, if you're somebody who haven't been in this particular building before, if you haven't been in this community, if my face is new to you, relatively speaking, please say hello in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And there ought to be a link in the notes below for alerting us to who you are. We would love to be able to reach out to you. And for everybody else, I'm so glad that you were able to be here today. Thank you. Thank you. After the benediction, we'll extinguish the chalice, of course, and sing our final song that we sing every Sunday. And after that, if you want to, you can flip over to the I guess you just refresh your YouTube page, and there will be a live YouTube presentation where I'll say a few more words and interact with your comments as they come in. And that is a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing that. It is as close as I get to seeing some of you these days. So I love that portion of our Sunday, and I invite you all, whether you are familiar or new to this group, to flip over there and interact with one another and with myself. With that all said, it's time for us to depart this space that we've created together, the space in your home that has been created by our interaction, as well as the interaction of people in homes that you cannot see. It's amazing, really. And so as we leave this sacred time and place that we have created together, let us do so with the yearning to return to those moments of service that make us come alive, that stir us into love, that induce in us a flow state. Let us cultivate an attitude wherein that is possible, maybe just by bringing attention to it or noticing after it has occurred and celebrating that it and in and of itself is an act of service. Thank you for being with us today. Go in peace. Let us go singing.